Everyone laughed when the maid's daughter said, "I speak 5 languages." But they were shocked when she began translating in front of everyone a $1 million contract that no one else understood. Before the story begins, wherever you are on your journey, consider this as encouragement to keep going. If this resonates with you, please give us a like and subscribe to our channel for more inspiration. The mahogany conference table reflected the harsh fluorescent lights as 12 executives sat in tense silence. Robert Harrison, CEO of Harrison Industries, rubbed his temples while reviewing the acquisition documents one final time. The Frankfurt deal would cost them $80 million, their biggest international expansion yet. "Gentlemen, ladies, this is our moment," Robert announced, his voice carrying the weight of 20 years building this company from nothing. The European market had eluded them for too long. This German manufacturing firm, Steinberg Holdings, represented their gateway to continental success. Michael Thompson, the CFO, nodded gravely. His calculations showed promising returns within 3 years, though the initial investment would strain their reserves. The meeting had been going for 2 hours, and everyone was exhausted but determined. Outside the glass walls, the Austin skyline gleamed in the afternoon sun, a testament to the city's booming business district, where Harrison Industries had made its mark. Sarah Collins pushed her cleaning cart past the conference room, trying to be invisible as always. 3 years she'd been cleaning these offices, 3 years of being a ghost among giants of industry. Her worn uniform and tired eyes told a story of struggle that none of these executives would ever understand. She glanced at her watch. 3:15 p.m. Emma would be getting out of school soon. Mrs. Rodriguez from next door was picking her up today, a favor Sarah couldn't afford to repay, except with gratitude and occasional homemade cookies. The conference room door was slightly ajar, and Sarah could hear the discussion inside growing more animated. Something about European regulations and market penetration strategies. She understood more than anyone would guess. Her past life seemed like a distant dream now. Suddenly a small voice piped up beside her. "Mommy, Mrs. Rodriguez had to go to the hospital. Her daughter called the school." Sarah's heart dropped. Emma stood there in her second-hand school uniform, backpack dragging on the floor. How had she gotten here? The school was 15 minutes away by bus. "Emma, sweetheart, how did you—" But Emma wasn't listening. Her enormous brown eyes were fixed on the conference room, where David Chen was projecting slides about Steinberg Holdings onto the wall. Something in German flickered across the screen. Financial projections, risk assessments. Emma's face changed, a look of concern replacing her usual cheerful expression. Before Sarah could stop her, Emma pushed through the door. "Excuse me." Her tiny voice cut through the corporate discussion like a knife through silk. Every head turned. Robert Harrison's face darkened. What is the meaning of this? He looked at Sarah, who had rushed in behind her daughter, face flushed with mortification. "Mr. Harrison, I'm so sorry. This is my daughter. There was an emergency with her babysitter. I'll remove her immediately." Sarah grabbed Emma's hand, but the little girl stood firm. "Wait, Mummy. These people need help." Michael Thompson laughed, not unkindly but dismissively. "Young lady, we're conducting very important business here." Emma looked directly at him, her voice steady and clear. "I know. You're buying a company in Germany, but something's wrong with those numbers." The room fell silent. David Chen looked amused. "Did you understand something on the screen, little one?" Emma nodded solemnly. "I speak 5 languages. German is one of them. That document you showed, it's not what you think it is." Linda Morrison, the HR director, leaned forward. "This is highly inappropriate. Sarah, please remove your child immediately, or we'll have to discuss your employment status." But Robert held up his hand, curious despite himself. 5 languages? How old are you, child?" 6 years old, sir. I speak English, Spanish, German, Mandarin, and French. The executives exchanged glances. Some rolled their eyes, others smirked. This was absurd, a 6-year-old claiming to be a polyglot interrupting a crucial meeting. Mr. Harrison, Emma continued, her small voice unwavering, that German text on the screen talks about environmental violations, big ones. The company you want to buy is hiding something very bad. She pointed at specific lines on the projection. There and there. They're using code words, but I recognize them from news programs I watch. David Chen pulled up his laptop, fingers flying across the keyboard. This is ridiculous. I've had 3 independent firms verify these documents. But something in Emma's earnest expression made him pause. Sarah stood frozen, torn between pride and terror. Sarah's mind drifted back 4 years as she watched her daughter stand before these powerful people. The memory was as clear as yesterday. Emma, at 2 years old, sitting in their tiny apartment, mimicking sounds from the Spanish soap operas their neighbor watched. It had started so innocently. Sarah had been studying for her citizenship test, practicing English phrases late into the night while Emma played nearby. One evening, exhausted from double shifts at the diner, Sarah had been struggling with pronunciation when Emma's tiny voice repeated the words perfectly. The flag has 13 stripes, the toddler had said, clear as day. Sarah had dropped her flashlight in shock. That was the beginning. By age 3, Emma was watching YouTube videos in different languages, absorbing them like a sponge absorbs water. Sarah couldn't afford toys or fancy educational programs, but the library had free internet. Emma would sit for hours, headphones too big for her small head, watching children's shows from around the world. The librarian, Mrs. Chen, had noticed first. "Your daughter is extraordinary," she'd said one day, watching Emma switch seamlessly between a French cartoon and a German educational program. "Have you considered having her tested?" But testing cost money Sarah didn't have. Private schools were a dream beyond reach. So Emma learned in secret, her gift hidden beneath hand-me-down clothes and a shy smile. The divorce had been finalized just after Emma's 2nd birthday. Marcus had left for a younger woman without children, someone who didn't remind him of responsibilities and struggles. He'd signed away his parental rights without hesitation, leaving Sarah with $200 and a broken heart. She'd moved to Austin with nothing but hope and determination. The cleaning job at Harrison Industries had been a lifeline, steady pay, health insurance, and evening shifts that let her be with Emma during the day. For 3 years, she'd polished these floors, emptied these trash cans, and remained invisible to the people who worked here. Now, watching Emma command the attention of these executives, Sarah felt a mixture of terror and fierce pride. Her daughter's gift had remained hidden for so long, protected from a world that might exploit or dismiss it. But Emma had always been special in ways beyond language. She noticed things others missed, patterns and connections that escaped adult eyes. "Mr. Chen," Emma was saying now, "can you search for Steinberg Umweltskandal 2019, please?" Her pronunciation was perfect, the German words rolling off her tongue as if she'd been born in Berlin. David Chen hesitated, then typed. His face paled as results flooded his screen. This can't be right. Articles in German filled the monitor, headlines screaming about covered-up toxic waste, legal battles, and government investigations. "They paid to have these suppressed," Emma explained, "but German local newspapers kept copies." My friend Hans from my online language group told me about it. His father is a journalist in Frankfurt. Robert Harrison stood up slowly, his face a mask of controlled fury. "Chen, why didn't we know about this? The due diligence reports were clean. All the documentation checked out. I don't understand how." "They lied," Emma said simply. In German, there are words that can mean different things in legal documents. They use technical language to hide the truth. Here, she pointed at a paragraph on the original acquisition document, this word, altlasten, they translated it as legacy assets, but it really means contaminated sites in environmental law. Michael Thompson was on his phone, speaking rapidly to someone. His face grew increasingly grim. Our legal team in Frankfurt just confirmed. There's been a sealed investigation since 2019. If we'd completed this acquisition, we'd be liable for $200 million in cleanup costs, Robert finished. The room fell silent except for the hum of the air conditioning. Sarah watched as these powerful men and women stared at her 6-year-old daughter with a mixture of awe and disbelief. James Peterson, the board chairman who rarely spoke, leaned forward. "Young lady, how exactly did you learn all this?" Emma smiled for the first time since entering the room. "Languages are like puzzles. Each one shows you a different picture of the world. When you speak 5 languages, you see 5 different pictures, and sometimes you notice when they don't match up." She looked at her mother with pure love. "Mommy taught me to always look for the truth, even when it's hidden." The conference room erupted into controlled chaos. Robert Harrison barked orders while Michael Thompson calculated potential losses they'd just avoided. David Chen was on 3 phone calls simultaneously, verifying Emma's discoveries with contacts in Germany. Through it all, Emma stood quietly beside her mother, small hand clasped in Sarah's trembling fingers. The weight of what had just happened was beginning to sink in. This 6-year-old child had just saved Harrison Industries from potential bankruptcy. Linda Morrison approached them, her expression unreadable. Sarah instinctively pulled Emma closer, preparing for the worst. "Mrs. Collins," Linda began, her tone formal, "we need to discuss what just happened here." "Please, Mrs. Morrison, I know Emma shouldn't have interrupted. I take full responsibility. If you need to terminate my employment, I understand, but please, let me finish this week so I can—" "Terminate." Robert Harrison's voice boomed across the room. He strode over, his presence commanding despite the chaos around them. "Mrs. Collins, your daughter just saved this company from the biggest disaster in our history. Terminate is the last thing on our minds." He knelt down to Emma's level, his stern face softening. "Emma, do you understand what you've done today?" Emma nodded solemnly. "I helped fix a mistake. Like when I helped Mommy find the right words for her English homework." Sarah's cheeks burned. She'd been taking night classes at the community college, trying to better herself, but hadn't told anyone at work. Robert stood, addressing the room. "Everyone, I want you to understand what we've witnessed here. A 6-year-old child saw what our entire team of analysts, lawyers, and consultants missed. She had the courage to speak up when it mattered." He turned back to Sarah. "How long have you worked here?" 3 years, sir. 3 years, and in all that time, we never knew we had this remarkable family in our building." His expression grew thoughtful. "Mrs. Collins, I'd like to discuss Emma's education. A child with her abilities shouldn't be in an ordinary public school." Sarah's spine stiffened. "Mr. Harrison, we're not looking for charity." "It's not charity, it's an investment. Emma, would you be willing to help us review some other international documents? We'd compensate you, of course, at a consultant's rate." The room went quiet. A 6-year-old consultant? It was unprecedented. James Peterson cleared his throat. "Robert, there are legal implications. Child labor laws, for one." "We'll figure it out," Robert said decisively. "Set up an educational trust, perhaps. Scholarship funds. There are ways to do this properly." Emma tugged on her mother's hand. "Mommy, does this mean we can fix the refrigerator? It's been making that funny noise for 2 months." The innocence of the question brought unexpected tears to several eyes. Here was a child who'd just saved an $80 million deal, worried about a broken refrigerator. Linda Morrison pulled out her phone. "Sarah, what school does Emma attend?" "Riverside Elementary, but My sister is on the board at St. Andrew's Academy. They have a gifted program that would be perfect for Emma. Full scholarship, of course. Sarah felt the world spinning. This morning she'd been worried about making rent. Now these people were offering to change their lives completely, but years of disappointment had taught her to be cautious. "Why?" she asked quietly. "Why would you do all this?" Robert's expression grew serious. "Because talent like Emma's is rare. Because we nearly made a catastrophic mistake despite all our resources and expertise. And because," he paused, looking at the assembled executives, "because sometimes the universe gives you a chance to do the right thing. Emma gave us that chance today." David Chen looked up from his laptop. "Mr. Harrison, I've just received confirmation from our Frankfurt office. Steinberg Holdings is under federal investigation. The announcement will go public tomorrow. If we'd signed today, we'd have been tied to a criminal enterprise." Michael finished. "Our stock would have tanked. Investors would have fled. It would have taken years to recover, if we ever did." The magnitude of the bullet they'd dodged was sinking in. All because a 6-year-old girl had wandered into their meeting. Emma yawned, the excitement finally catching up with her. "Mommy, I'm tired and hungry. Can we go home?" Sarah started to agree, but Robert intervened. "Actually, I'd like to take you both to dinner, my treat. We have much to discuss about Emma's future." He looked around the room. "All of you are welcome to join us." The restaurant was unlike anything Sarah had ever experienced. Crystal chandeliers cast soft light over tables dressed in white linen, while a pianist played gentle jazz in the corner. Emma sat between her mother and Robert Harrison, her eyes wide as she took in the elegant surroundings. The children's menu had been politely declined. Emma was reading from the regular menu, switching between English and French as she recognized dishes. The other executives had begged off, needing to deal with the Steinberg crisis, leaving just Robert, Sarah, and Emma. "Mrs. Collins," Robert began after they'd ordered, "I hope you don't mind my asking, but Emma's father—" Sarah's jaw tightened. "He left when Emma was 2, signed away his rights. We haven't heard from him since." She waited for the judgment that usually followed this admission, but Robert simply nodded. "His loss. Emma is extraordinary, and I don't just mean her language abilities. The courage it took to walk into that room today, the clarity of thought, these are rare qualities at any age." Emma was coloring on the paper the waiter had brought, but Sarah knew she was listening. Her daughter missed nothing. "Tell me about yourself, Sarah. You mentioned English homework earlier." Sarah felt exposed under his steady gaze. "It's nothing special. I'm taking night classes at Austin Community College, business administration. I thought maybe someday." She trailed off, embarrassed by her modest dreams in the face of his success. "Someday you'd like to be more than a cleaning lady?" Robert's tone was gentle, not mocking. "Everyone starts somewhere. I was a janitor once, did you know that? 25 years ago, fresh out of the army, no college degree, just determination." Sarah looked up, surprised. Robert Harrison, the millionaire CEO, had been a janitor? "It's true," he continued. "Worked nights at a tech startup, taught myself coding during breaks. The founder noticed, gave me a chance. That startup became my first acquisition when I founded Harrison Industries." He smiled at the memory. "Success isn't about where you start, Sarah. It's about where you're determined to go." Emma looked up from her coloring. "Mr. Harrison, why do grown-ups think being a janitor is bad? Mommy keeps everything clean and pretty. Without her, your offices would be messy and nobody could work properly. She's important." Robert chuckled. "You're absolutely right, Emma. Your mother is essential to our operations. I apologize if I implied otherwise." The food arrived, and Emma tried escargot for the first time, pronouncing it perfectly in French and declaring it interesting but weird. As they ate, Robert outlined his proposal. "I want to establish the Emma Collins Educational Fund. It would cover her education through graduate school if she chooses. Additionally, I'd like to offer you a different position at Harrison Industries, Sarah, executive assistant in our international division. The pay is considerably better, and the hours would align with Emma's school schedule. Sarah's hands trembled as she set down her fork. Mr. Harrison, I don't have the qualifications for that position. You're taking business classes. You're raising a genius daughter alone. You've shown up to work faithfully for 3 years, never missing a day. Those are qualifications enough. The rest you can learn. He paused. Besides, Emma would be our youngest consultant. We'd need you nearby when she visits the office. Consultant, Emma asked. What would I do? Help us review international documents, attend some meetings when appropriate, and teach our staff about language nuances. Maybe an hour or 2 per week, always with your mother present. We'd put your compensation into a trust fund for your future. Sarah felt tears threatening. This is too much. You don't owe us anything. It's not about owing, Robert said firmly. It's about recognizing potential. Emma has it in abundance. So do you, Sarah. You just haven't had the opportunity to show it. Emma reached for her water glass, accidentally knocking it over. Water spread across the white tablecloth as Sarah immediately began apologizing, reaching for napkins. But Robert calmly signaled the waiter, who efficiently handled the spill without fuss. Accidents happen, Robert said to Emma, who looked near tears. What matters is how we handle them. You know what? I once spilled wine on a Japanese investor during a crucial dinner. I thought my career was over. Instead, he laughed and said that in Japan, spilling sake together means you'll be friends for life. We closed the deal that night. Emma smiled through her worry. Really? Really? Sometimes our mistakes lead to our greatest opportunities. He looked meaningfully at Sarah, like today. If Emma hadn't interrupted our meeting, we'd have made a terrible mistake. Your accident of bringing her to work saved us. As dessert arrived, chocolate soufflé that made Emma's eyes widen in delight, Sarah realized this dinner was more than a thank you. Monday morning arrived with unusual challenges. News of the Steinberg Holdings scandal had broken internationally, with Harrison Industries mentioned as the company that had wisely withdrawn from negotiations at the last moment. Nobody outside the conference room knew the real story of how they'd been saved. Emma sat in her classroom at Riverside Elementary, trying to focus on the teacher's lesson about basic addition, while her mind wandered to infinitely more complex problems. The other children were learning that 2 + 2 = 4, while Emma was quietly working through algebraic equations in her notebook, having taught herself from videos in Mandarin because she'd found the explanations clearer. "Emma Collins!" Mrs. Patterson's sharp voice cut through her thoughts. "Since you're clearly not paying attention, perhaps you can tell the class what 8 + 7 = 15, Emma responded automatically, then added without thinking, which is aussi 15 en français, und 15 auf Deutsch, y 15 en espagnol, and shiwu in Mandarin. The classroom fell silent. Several children giggled. Tommy Morrison, the class bully, whose mother coincidentally worked at Harrison Industries, sneered, "Emma thinks she's so special. My mum says your mom is just a cleaning lady. You probably don't even speak those languages. You're just making up sounds." Emma felt her cheeks burn. She'd kept her abilities hidden for so long, but after Friday's events, something had shifted inside her. She was tired of pretending to be less than she was. "I'm not making it up," she said quietly. Mrs. Patterson sighed. "Emma, this is math class, not language arts. Please pay attention to the lesson." But Tommy wasn't finished. During recess, he cornered Emma by the swings, his usual group of followers behind him. "My mum says you and your mum pulled some trick on Friday. She says there's no way a 6-year-old speaks 5 languages. You're a liar." Emma stood her ground, though her heart was racing. "Your mom is Mrs. Morrison from HR. She was there. She knows it's true." Tommy's face reddened. Yeah, then prove it. Say something in Chinese. Emma rattled off a perfect Mandarin phrase about the importance of kindness and understanding. To Tommy, it sounded like gibberish, which only made him angrier. You're just making up sounds. You're a faker, just like your mom is fake, pretending she's something more than a toilet cleaner. The word stung more than any physical blow could have. Emma felt tears threatening, but refused to let them fall. My mom works hard. There's nothing wrong with being a cleaning lady. She's the smartest person I know. Smart? Tommy laughed. Smart people don't clean toilets. Smart people have real jobs like my mom. He pushed Emma, not hard enough to knock her down, but enough to make her stumble. Stay away from my mom's company, freak. A teacher finally noticed the confrontation and hurried over, but Tommy and his friends had already scattered. Emma stood alone, fists clenched, wondering if accepting Mr. Harrison's offer would only make things worse. At Harrison Industries, Sarah was experiencing her own trials. Linda Morrison had been coldly professional when announcing Sarah's promotion to the cleaning staff that morning. The news had spread like wildfire, generating a mix of reactions from her former colleagues. Must be nice, Maria, who'd worked there 5 years, said with barely concealed bitterness. Your kid does one trick and suddenly you're executive material. Sarah tried to explain that she'd been taking classes, that Mr. Harrison saw potential, but the damage was done. The people she'd considered friends now looked at her with suspicion and envy. Her new desk was on the 15th floor, a small cubicle near the international division. The computer alone was worth more than everything in her apartment. She'd spent the morning trying to navigate systems she didn't understand, grateful that David Chen had offered to help her learn the basics. Don't let them get to you, David said during lunch, having noticed her distress. Office politics are brutal, but you earned this. Emma earned this. That matters more than their opinions. Did I earn it, though? Sarah asked, voicing her deepest fear, or am I just riding on my 6-year-old's coattails? David set down his sandwich. Sarah, do you know how many employees have children? Dozens. Do you know how many of those children could have noticed what Emma noticed? 0. She's exceptional because you raised her to be exceptional, despite your circumstances, not because of them. His phone buzzed. He glanced at it and frowned. Speaking of Emma, there's been an incident at her school. The principal just called Mr. Harrison's office. Someone reported you for potential child exploitation. The principal's office at Riverside Elementary was cramped and smelled of old coffee and disappointment. Sarah sat rigid in the uncomfortable chair while Principal Howard shuffled papers across his desk. Emma waited outside with the secretary, having been pulled from class for the 2nd time that day. Robert Harrison had insisted on attending the meeting, his presence filling the small room with an authority that made Principal Howard visibly nervous. Mrs. Collins, the principal began, adjusting his glasses, we've received a formal complaint from a concerned parent about Emma's situation. They claim you're exploiting your daughters. Alleged abilities for financial gain. Sarah's hands clenched in her lap. Who made this complaint? I'm not at liberty to say, but they expressed concern about Emma being paraded in front of executives at Harrison Industries and being offered adult responsibilities that could harm her development. Robert leaned forward. Principal Howard, I'm Robert Harrison. Emma provided invaluable consultation to my company last Friday. Everything was done with her mother present and with Emma's full consent. We're establishing an educational trust, not exploiting a child. The principal's eyes widened as he recognized the name. Harrison Industries donated significantly to local schools, though not to Riverside. Mr. Harrison, I didn't realize you were personally involved. The complaint suggested this was some sort of scheme. The only scheme here, Robert said coolly, is someone trying to diminish a remarkable child's achievements. Emma speaks 5 languages fluently. Has this school done anything to nurture that gift? Principal Howard shifted uncomfortably. We don't have resources for gifted programs. Emma does well in her regular classes. She's bored out of her mind, Sarah interjected, finding her voice. She taught herself algebra while your teachers are still doing single-digit addition. She reads at a college level, and instead of supporting her, you're investigating us? A knock interrupted them. The secretary opened the door. Principal Howard, there's been an incident in Mrs. Patterson's classroom. She says it's urgent. They hurried to the classroom to find chaos. On the whiteboard, someone had written complex mathematical equations in multiple languages. Mrs. Patterson stood pale-faced, while Tommy Morrison pointed at Emma's empty desk. She did it. Emma snuck in during lunch and wrote all this nonsense to show off. But Emma had been in the office. Sarah realized immediately what had happened. Emma must have written these during a previous class, and someone had just discovered them. Robert walked to the board, studying the equations. This isn't nonsense. These are advanced calculus problems, solved correctly, with explanations in 5 different languages. He turned to Mrs. Patterson. Has Emma been doing this level of work in your class? Mrs. Patterson looked flustered. She's disruptive, always finishing too quickly, asking questions beyond the curriculum. So, instead of challenging her, you've been suppressing her, Robert stated flatly. Principal Howard, I think we've seen enough. St. Andrew's Academy has already accepted Emma for immediate enrollment. We'll be withdrawing her today. Tommy Morrison's face went red. My mom says you can't just buy your way into St. Andrew's. They have standards. They do, Robert agreed, including an entrance exam that Emma passed with perfect scores in all subjects, including foreign language proficiency that exceeded their high school requirements. He looked at the principal. Your school is failing gifted children like Emma. Perhaps that's worth investigating more than false complaints from jealous parents. D. As they prepared to leave, Emma finally spoke up. Mr. Howard, there are 3 other kids in my class who are really smart too. Maria does math in her head faster than calculators. James reads books in Japanese his grandmother sends him. Ashley writes poetry that sounds like music. But nobody notices because they're quiet about it like I used to be. She looked at her classmates, many of whom had gathered to watch the drama. Being different isn't wrong. Being smart isn't showing off. And having a mom who cleans offices doesn't make me less valuable than someone whose mom works in an office. Tommy's mother arrived then, Linda Morrison storming in with barely contained fury. Robert, this is highly inappropriate. You're disrupting the entire school day. Linda, Robert's voice was ice. Did you file the complaint against Sarah and Emma? She hesitated just long enough to confirm his suspicion. I was concerned about the precedent we're setting. The precedent of recognizing talent regardless of socioeconomic status. You're right, that is concerning. For people who believe privilege should determine opportunity. He turned to Sarah and Emma. Let's go. Emma starts at St. Andrew's tomorrow. As they walked out, Emma tugged on her mother's hand. Mommy, are we really leaving Riverside? Sarah knelt beside her daughter. Yes, sweetheart. You're going to a school that will challenge you. But what about Maria and James and Ashley? Emma's concern for her classmates touched everyone who heard it. Robert considered. Emma? If your friends are as gifted as you say, perhaps we can arrange testing for them too. Talent shouldn't be wasted because of zip codes. St. Andrew's Academy stood like a castle against the Austin skyline, its manicured lawns and Gothic architecture a world away from Riverside Elementary. Emma clutched her new backpack, a gift from Mr. Harrison, as Sarah walked her through the imposing gates. Other parents arrived in luxury cars, designer sunglasses hiding curious glances at the woman in the modest sedan. Dr. Patricia Winters, the Academy's director, greeted them personally. Emma, We're thrilled to have you. Your entrance exam scores were unprecedented. A perfect score hasn't been achieved in our 20-year history. She led them through hallways lined with portraits of distinguished alumni. Your classroom teacher, Ms. Chen, is our languages department head. She speaks 4 languages herself. Emma's eyes lit up. Finally, someone who might understand her. The classroom was smaller than at Riverside, only 12 students. They looked up as Emma entered, their expressions curious but not unkind. Ms. Chen smiled warmly. Class, this is Emma Collins. Emma, would you like to introduce yourself in whichever language feels comfortable? Emma considered, then spoke in English, Spanish and French, explaining her love of languages and hoped to make friends. Several students responded in Spanish and French, welcoming her. Sarah watched from the doorway, relief flooding through her. This felt right. Back at Harrison Industries, however, storm clouds were gathering. Linda Morrison sat in the boardroom with 3 other board members, documents spread before them. Roberts lost his objectivity, she insisted. Hiring a cleaning lady as an executive assistant, creating a consultant position for a 6-year-old, the shareholders will revolt. James Peterson studied the papers. The Steinberg situation would have cost us everything, Linda. The child saved us. Pure luck, Linda countered. And now Robert's restructuring entire departments based on a child's whim. It's reckless. Thomas Grant, the newest board member, leaned back. What exactly are you proposing? Linda's smile was sharp. A formal review of Robert's recent decisions. Question his judgment publicly if shareholders lose confidence. She didn't need to finish. They all understood. A CEO could be removed if the board united against him. Meanwhile, David Chen was conducting his own investigation. Something about the Steinberg documents bothered him. How had they fooled so many experts? He'd spent the weekend digging deeper, and what he'd found chilled him. The deception went beyond Steinberg. Someone had been feeding Harrison Industries false information for months, setting them up for failure. His phone rang. Chen, it's Morrison. I need you in my office, now. David saved his files to a secure drive before heading to HR. Linda sat behind her desk like a queen on her throne. David, you've been helping Sarah Collins adjust to her new position. It wasn't a question. She's a quick learner, David replied carefully. I'm sure she is, but I'm concerned about security. She has access to sensitive information now. What do we really know about her background? She's been here 3 years without incident. Linda's smile didn't reach her eyes. Yes, but people can hide things for years. I've done some digging. Did you know Sarah Collins isn't her real name? David kept his expression neutral, though his pulse quickened. What do you mean? She changed it legally 5 years ago. Her maiden name was Sarah Chen. She watched him carefully. Any relation to you? Chen is like Smith in China. There are millions of us. But Linda wasn't finished. Perhaps. But it's interesting that you're so eager to help her, and that her daughter suddenly appears just as we're about to make a major acquisition, almost like someone knew exactly what we were planning. The implication hung heavy. David stood. If you're suggesting Sarah or Emma are involved in corporate espionage, you need proof. Otherwise, this is slander. I'm not suggesting anything yet, but I am watching. And David, your contract is up for renewal next month. It would be unfortunate if questions about your loyalty arose. After David left, Linda made a phone call. It's me. Yes, the plan is proceeding. Harrison will be out within the month, and then we can move forward with the real acquisition. She paused, listening. The woman and child? They'll be discredited completely. I've already planted the seeds of doubt. By the time I'm done, no one will believe a word they say. At St. Andrews, Emma was having lunch with her new classmates when a man approached the school gates. Security stopped him, but he held up a camera with a telephoto lens. Jake Williams, Austin Daily. I'm doing a story on the 6-year-old genius who saved Harrison Industries. I'll pay well for photos of Emma Collins. The security guard immediately alerted Dr. Winters, who called Sarah. Within minutes, Robert Harrison was on the phone with the school's board, arranging for increased security. The media had found Emma, and their quiet life was about to end. That evening, Sarah found Emma reading documents in German on her tablet, her face troubled. "Mommy, something's wrong with these papers from Mr. Chen. Someone changed them. The timestamps don't match, and the language pattern is different from native German speakers." Sarah's past had always been a locked door she refused to open. But now, with Linda Morrison digging into her history, the locks were breaking one by one. She sat at her kitchen table after Emma had gone to bed, staring at the old photograph she kept hidden in her jewelry box. A younger version of herself smiled back, wearing a cap and gown, holding a Princeton diploma. Sarah Chen, Bachelor of International Business, summa cum laude. That woman had dreams of conquering Wall Street, of breaking glass ceilings. That woman had never imagined she'd be cleaning offices to survive. The phone rang, startling her. David Chen's voice was urgent. "Sarah, we need to talk. Can you meet me at the office? Bring Emma's analysis of those German documents. It's 10 at night. Emma's sleeping." "Wake her. This can't wait. Linda Morrison is planning something big, and I think Emma found the key to stopping her." Sarah hesitated. "David, who are you really? Linda said something about us having the same last name before I changed mine." There was a long pause. "I'm your cousin Sarah, your father's nephew. I recognized you the day you started working here, but you'd changed your name. Clearly wanted a fresh start. I respected that, but now you're in danger." The revelation hit Sarah like a physical blow. David had known all along. He'd watched her struggle, cleaning the offices, and said nothing. "You knew? You knew, and you let me. You were too proud to accept help then. Would you have taken a job if you knew I'd arranged it? You needed to rebuild on your own terms, but this is different. Linda's connected to something bigger, something that goes back to why you had to leave New York." Sarah's blood ran cold. "That's impossible. He's in prison." "Marcus isn't in prison anymore, Sarah. He got out on appeal 6 months ago, and he's been looking for you and Emma." The room spun. Marcus, Emma's father, the man who'd been arrested for embezzlement and fraud 2 weeks after abandoning them, the man whose crimes she'd discovered and reported, making her a key witness. The man who'd sworn revenge. He doesn't have parental rights. He signed them away. Legal documents don't stop someone like Marcus. And Sarah, Linda Morrison is his sister. She changed her name too after the scandal. She's been at Harrison Industries for 2 years, waiting for the right moment. Sarah grabbed Emma, still in her pajamas, and drove to Harrison Industries. The building was mostly empty, but David and Robert were waiting in the conference room. Emma, despite being sleepy, immediately spread out the German documents she'd been analyzing. "Look," she pointed, more awake now, "these signatures are digital forgeries. Someone used a sophisticated program, but they made one mistake. German legal documents require a specific timestamp format. These use American formatting. Someone in this company created these fake documents to make the Steinberg deal look good." Robert examined the evidence. "Who has access to our document system at this level?" David pulled up the access logs. "Only 5 people, you, me, Michael Thompson, James Peterson, and Linda Morrison," Robert finished. "But why would she want us to buy a toxic company?" Emma, who'd been quietly connecting dots on a piece of paper, looked up. "Because someone would buy Harrison Industries cheap after it failed. Someone who knew the Steinberg deal was bad, would be ready." "A hostile takeover," Sarah whispered. "Marcus specialized in those. He'd identify companies, sabotage them from the inside using planted employees, then buy them for pennies on the dollar." Robert's phone buzzed. Security was calling. "Sir, we have a situation." "Someone's in the building, 15th floor." That was Sarah's flaw. They watched the security monitors as a figure moved through the darkened office. The person was at Sarah's desk, searching through drawers. David zoomed in the camera. It was Linda Morrison. "She's looking for something," Robert said. "The original documents," Emma realized. "She knows I found the forgeries. She needs to destroy the evidence." But Robert was already calling the police. "This is Robert Harrison. We have a break-in at Harrison Industries. The intruder is an employee engaged in corporate espionage." Linda must have heard something because she suddenly looked up at the camera. Her face contorted with rage when she realized she'd been caught. She pulled out her phone, dialing frantically. "Marcus, we have a problem. They know everything." She listened. Then her face paled. "What do you mean you're already here?" The elevator dinged. Security cameras showed a man stepping onto the 15th floor. Marcus Collins, Emma's father, looking older but still handsome in an expensive suit. Sarah gasped. He wasn't supposed to know where they were. They'd been so careful. Emma stared at the monitor, studying the man she'd never met. "That's my biological father." Sarah nodded, unable to speak. Emma watched Marcus approach Linda, their body language tense. "He's angry with her," Emma observed. "Look at his hands. He's making fists. Mrs. Morrison failed, and he doesn't like failure." The next morning, Austin Daily's headline screamed, "6-year-old genius exposed in corporate espionage scandal." Linda Morrison, now in custody, had given an exclusive interview painting herself as a whistleblower who'd discovered Sarah and Emma Collins were part of an elaborate fraud scheme. By 7 a.m., news vans surrounded both Harrison Industries and St. Andrew's Academy. Parents demanded Emma's removal from the school. The board called an emergency meeting. Sarah tried to shield Emma from the chaos, but the little girl had already seen the news on her tablet. "They're saying I'm a fake," Emma said quietly. "That you taught me to memorize phrases to fool everyone." "Baby, you know that's not true." Sarah held her close. "We know the truth." "What if no one believes us?" Robert Harrison was facing his own battle. The board had called him in, their faces grim. Thomas Grant held up the morning paper. "This is a disaster, Robert. Our stock is down 12% in pre-market trading." "Linda Morrison is a criminal," Robert stated firmly. "She's been arrested for corporate espionage." "According to her," James Peterson interjected, "you've been seduced by a con artist and her daughter. She claims to have evidence that Sarah Collins has been planning this for years." "That's absurd." "Is it?" Thomas challenged. "You promoted a cleaning lady to executive assistant. You created a consultant position for a 6-year-old. You're paying for the child's education. It looks inappropriate." The word hung in the air like poison. Robert's jaw clenched. "Are you suggesting something improper about my relationship with Sarah Collins?" "The media is suggesting it," another board member said. "The optics are terrible. A wealthy older man, a struggling single mother." "Enough!" Robert slammed his hand on the table. "I've led this company for 15 years. We're successful because I recognize talent and invest in it. Emma Collins saved us from bankruptcy, that's a fact. According to you and the Collins family. But Linda suggests you all fabricated the Steinberg crisis together." Meanwhile, at the police station, Linda Morrison sat across from Detective Ray Hutchinson, spinning her web of lies with practiced ease. "Sarah Collins is actually Sarah Chen. She graduated from Princeton with honors, but was involved in a major fraud case in New York. She fled here, changed her name, and took a menial job to stay under the radar while planning her next con. And the child? Trained from birth. Sarah spent years teaching her to memorize phrases in different languages. Emma doesn't actually speak them fluently. It's all performance. I have videos that prove it." She produced a flash drive. The detective plugged it in, watching grainy footage of Emma in the break room at Harrison Industries, apparently practicing phrases while Sarah coached her. Of course, the video was edited, taken out of context from times when Emma was simply talking to her mother about her language studies, but it looked damning. At St. Andrews, Dr. Winters faced angry parents. "This child could be a fraud," one father declared. "Our children attend this academy because of its reputation. Having her here taints that reputation." "Emma passed our entrance exams," Dr. Winters reminded them. "Tests can be gamed if you know what's coming." Someone at Harrison Industries could have provided the answers. Ms. Chen stood up. "I've been working with Emma for 3 days. She's fluent in 5 languages. I've tested her myself with materials she couldn't have prepared for. She's genuine." But doubt had been planted. Several parents threatened to withdraw their children if Emma remained. David Chen worked furiously from his apartment, having been suspended pending investigation. He'd managed to copy crucial files before being locked out. The real evidence of Linda's crimes was there, but he needed time to decode it. His phone rang, an unknown number. "David Chen." The voice was smooth, cultured. "Marcus, I believe you're trying to help my ex-wife and daughter. That's admirable, but foolish. What do you want, Marcus?" "What I've always wanted, what was taken from me. Sarah destroyed my life. She could have been a queen at my side, but instead she chose to betray me. Now she'll learn what it costs to cross me. Emma is your daughter. Emma is a tool Sarah used against me, but tools can be repurposed. I'm filing for custody, a convicted fraudster and struggling cleaning lady versus a successful businessman with no criminal record since my charges were overturned. Who do you think the court will choose?" David's blood ran cold. The charges being overturned, that's why Marcus was so confident. He'd spent 6 years and millions of dollars getting his conviction reversed on technicalities. "You won't get away with this." Marcus laughed. "I already have. Check the news, cousin." David switched on the television. A reporter stood outside family court. In a shocking development, Marcus Sterling, formerly Marcus Collins, has filed emergency custody papers for Emma Collins, citing parental alienation and concerns about the child's welfare in light of current fraud allegations. The revelation came from the most unexpected source. Tommy Morrison, the boy who'd bullied Emma, sat in the principal's office at Riverside Elementary, tears streaming down his face. His father, James Morrison, Linda's ex-husband, sat beside him holding a laptop. "My son has something to say," James told Principal Howard, who'd called Dr. Winters from St. Andrews. Both Sarah and Robert were present, having been summoned urgently. Tommy's voice shook. "My mom made me do it. She made me be mean to Emma. She said if I didn't, she'd send me away to military school." He hiccuped through his tears. "She knew Emma was special. She's known for weeks." James opened the laptop. Ames. "When Linda and I divorced 2 years ago, I got joint custody of Tommy. What I didn't know was that she'd been recording everything, our home, her office, even Tommy's interactions. She's paranoid about evidence, but that paranoia is about to backfire." He clicked play on a video file. It was Linda's home office, date stamped 3 weeks ago. Linda was on the phone, pacing. "Marcus, the girl is extraordinary. She actually speaks those languages. I've tested her myself, listening from the hallway when she talks to herself. She switches between languages fluidly, even thinks in them." Marcus's voice came through the speaker. "Then she's more valuable than we thought. Smart children can be molded. Once I have custody, I'll have leverage over Sarah and Harrison both." "The fraud angle?" Linda asked. "We'll only need to hold up long enough for the custody hearing. Once I have Emma, Sarah will do anything I say. She'll confess to whatever we want. Harrison Industries will crumble, we'll buy it cheap, and I'll finally have everything that should have been mine." James clicked to another file. This one from Linda's car, the day of the Steinberg meeting. The documents are in place. Emma, seeing them, is actually perfect. A 6-year-old catching what experts missed? No one will believe it wasn't staged. We'll paint it as Sarah's long con, using her genius daughter as a prop. The room was silent. Principal Howard was the first to speak. This is conspiracy, attempted kidnapping, corporate fraud. It's more than that, Robert said quietly. Tommy, did your mother ever hurt you? The boy nodded miserably. She hit me when I said Emma was nice. She said nice was weak, and Morrisons aren't weak. James Morrison's face darkened. I'm filing for full custody immediately, and this evidence goes to the FBI today. Dr. Winters looked at Emma, who'd been silent throughout. Emma, did you understand what was on those recordings? Emma nodded solemnly. My biological father wants to use me to hurt Mommy and Mr. Harrison, but why does he hate Mommy so much? Sarah finally spoke, her voice steady despite her tears. Because I found out he was stealing, Emma, from lots of people. Poor people who trusted him with their savings. I couldn't let him do that, so I told the police. He went to jail, but he always blamed me instead of himself. You did the right thing, Emma said firmly, even though it was hard. Robert had been typing on his phone throughout. I've just sent this recording to our legal team and the Austin Daily. By noon, the real story will be everywhere. But there was more. David Chen arrived, breathing hard from running. I found it, the smoking gun. He held up a tablet. Linda's been embezzling for 2 years, funneling money to accounts in the Caymans. But here's the kicker. She's been doing it under Marcus's instructions. He never stopped running cons from prison. He had a whole network. Annie, how much? Robert asked. $8 million, all traceable, and there's more. Marcus isn't working alone. He has partners, other companies he's targeted. Harrison Industries was just the latest mark. Detective Hutchinson walked in then, having been called by James Morrison. We've been building a case against Marcus Sterling for months. This evidence is exactly what we needed. Linda Morrison is already turning state's evidence in exchange for a reduced sentence. Marcus Sterling will be arrested within the hour. Emma tugged on her mother's hand. Mommy, does this mean we're safe now? Sarah knelt beside her daughter. I think so, baby. I think we're finally safe. But Robert shook his head. Not yet. The media storm is still raging. We need to clear your names publicly, definitively. Emma, would you be willing to do something brave? What kind of brave? The kind where you show the whole world who you really are. Live television, a demonstration that no one can deny. Emma straightened her small shoulders. I'm not afraid of the truth. Dr. Winters smiled. I know just the venue. The state academic championships are tomorrow. They're televised. Emma could compete in the languages category. It's usually for high school students, but there's no minimum age requirement. She'll be competing against teenagers, Sarah protested. Emma's 6 years old. Emma's chin lifted. I can do it. I want to do it. No more hiding. The Austin Convention Center buzzed with nervous energy as hundreds of students prepared for the state academic championships. Emma stood out dramatically, a tiny figure among teenagers, her feet dangling from the chair as she waited for the language competition to begin. The media had turned out in force, cameras focused on the 6-year-old who'd become the center of a corporate scandal. Sarah sat in the audience between Robert and David, her hands clenched so tightly her knuckles were white. Around them, whispers rippled through the crowd. Some people pointed, others took photos. The story had exploded overnight. Marcus Sterling's arrest, Linda Morrison's confession, the evidence of a massive fraud conspiracy. But public opinion remained divided. Many still believed Emma was part of an elaborate hoax. The competition moderator, Professor Elizabeth Hartwell from the University of Texas, approached the microphone. Ladies and gentlemen, this year's language competition will test our participants' abilities in translation, interpretation, and cultural understanding. Each contestant will face increasingly difficult challenges across multiple languages. Emma's first opponent was a 17-year-old named Bradley who'd won the competition twice before. He looked at Emma with barely concealed amusement. "Good luck, little girl." The first round began. Professor Hartwell projected a paragraph in French onto the screen. "Translate this passage into English, explaining any cultural idioms." Bradley went first, delivering a competent translation. Then Emma stood on her chair to reach the microphone. Not only did she translate perfectly, but she also explained the historical context of the idioms, their origins in 18th century French literature, and offered alternative translations that captured different nuances of meaning. The audience fell silent. Bradley's smirk faded. Round 2, German technical documentation. The teenagers struggled with specialized terminology. Emma breezed through it, then explained why certain technical terms had been borrowed from English and how they'd evolved differently in German usage. Round 3, simultaneous translation of a Spanish news broadcast. While others stumbled over the rapid pace, Emma translated in real time, even capturing the reporter's regional accent and adjusting her English to match the formality level. By round 4, when contestants had to identify languages from audio clips and translate conversations between multiple speakers, switching languages mid-sentence, Emma was clearly dominant. She identified Mandarin, Cantonese, French, German, Spanish, Portuguese, and even caught a few phrases in Italian and Japanese that weren't part of her 5 primary languages, but which she'd picked up from exposure. The final challenge was unprecedented. Professor Hartwell announced, "Due to the unique circumstances and skill level displayed, we're adding a special round. Ms. Collins will take questions from the audience in any of her 5 languages and respond in whichever language the questioner prefers." An elderly German man stood up. He spoke rapidly in Berlin-accented German about quantum physics. Emma responded fluently, admitting she didn't understand all the physics concepts, but translating his question perfectly and explaining what she did understand. A French diplomat asked about poetry. Emma recited Baudelaire and explained the symbolism. A Chinese businessman tested her with financial terminology. She kept up effortlessly. A Spanish teacher tried to trip her with regional slang from Argentina. Emma identified it correctly and explained how it differed from Mexican Spanish. Then a woman stood up in the back. She spoke in heavily accented English. "My question is for the mother. Mrs. Collins, your daughter is gifted beyond measure. Why did you hide this for so long?" Sarah stood slowly, her voice carrying across the silent auditorium. "Because I wanted Emma to have a childhood. Because extraordinary children become targets. Because I knew that once the world saw her gift, she'd never be just Emma again. She'd be a phenomenon, a story, a symbol. I wanted her to be my little girl for as long as possible." She paused, looking at Emma with pure love. "But I was wrong to hide it completely. Emma deserves to shine. She deserves schools that challenge her, teachers who understand her, and a world that celebrates rather than fears her abilities. And," Sarah continued, her voice growing stronger, "I was wrong to hide my own past. Yes, I was Sarah Chen. Yes, I graduated from Princeton. Yes, I testified against my ex-husband for fraud. And yes, I've been cleaning offices for 3 years because that was the honest work I could find. There's no shame in that. I'm proud of every floor I've mopped because I did it to provide for my daughter." The auditorium erupted in applause. Emma ran to her mother and Sarah lifted her up, both of them crying. Robert Harrison stood and addressed the crowd. "Harrison Industries is proud to sponsor Emma Collins's education through doctorate level, should she choose. We're also establishing the Emma Collins Language Institute for gifted children who might otherwise be overlooked." 6 months had passed since the state academic championships. The autumn sun streamed through the windows of the Emma Collins Language Institute, where 20 gifted children from low-income families were learning their third or fourth languages. Emma, now 7, served as a peer tutor, her joy infectious as she helped a younger student with Mandarin tones. Sarah stood in the doorway of her office. She was now Director of Family Services for the Institute, helping parents navigate the challenges of raising exceptional children while managing their own careers and education. Her night school graduation certificate hung on the wall, next to a photo from the day she'd received her business degree. She'd finished her education while the media storm raged, determined to earn her position through merit, not sympathy. "Knock, knock," Robert said, entering with a smile. Their relationship had evolved slowly, carefully, from employer-employee to friends to something more. But they'd waited until the scandal died down, until Sarah was established in her own right, before acknowledging what had grown between them. "The Journal wants another interview," he said, "about the Institute's success." "Again?" Sarah laughed. "What more can we tell them? That we've identified 40 more children like Emma in Texas alone. That the traditional education system has been failing gifted children from underprivileged backgrounds for decades. That talent exists everywhere, waiting to be nurtured." Through the window, they watched Emma teaching a group of students a Chinese song, their voices rising in harmony. Maria, James, and Ashley from her old school were there, finally getting the education they deserved. Even Tommy Morrison attended, his father James having won full custody and determined to undo the damage Linda had done. Linda herself was serving 5 years in federal prison. Marcus had gotten 15 years with no possibility of appeal this time. The network of corporate fraudsters they'd been part of had been dismantled, saving dozens of companies from hostile takeovers. "Mr. Harrison, Mrs. Collins!" Emma ran over, her face bright with excitement. "Look what we made." She held up a book, Stories from Many Lands, written in 5 languages by the students. "We're going to sell them to raise money for more scholarships." David Chen appeared, grinning. "The publisher already wants to order 5,000 copies. Emma's becoming quite the entrepreneur." He'd been promoted to Chief International Officer, his loyalty during the crisis having proven invaluable. More importantly, he'd become the uncle Emma had never known she had, teaching her about their family's heritage and history. Dr. Winters from St. Andrews arrived for her weekly visit. The academy had become the Institute's primary partner, with their students mentoring the younger children. "Emma, the high school students want to know if you'll help with their presentation on linguistic evolution." "Can I, Mommy?" Emma asked eagerly. Sarah nodded, watching her daughter race off with Dr. Winters. At 7, Emma was taking high school-level courses in languages, middle school math and science, but also art, music, and physical education with children her own age. They'd found a balance between nurturing her gift and preserving her childhood. That evening, as the Institute closed and families headed home, Sarah found Emma in the library, reading to a group of younger children. The book was in English, but Emma was simultaneously translating into Spanish for Miguel, French for Marie, and Mandarin for Lynn. The children giggled as she did different voices for each character in each language. "You saved us all," Robert said quietly, standing beside Sarah. "Not me," Sarah replied. "Emma did. Emma saved my company. You saved Emma. You gave her the strength to stand up in that boardroom, the courage to face the world's scrutiny, the wisdom to use her gift for others." He paused. "You saved me too. I'd forgotten why I started Harrison Industries. To give opportunities to those who deserved them." Emma reminded me. "You reminded me. You." And as they watched Emma with the children, a news alert popped up on Sarah's phone. Harrison Industries stock reaches all-time high following successful European expansion. The company had thrived since the scandal, with investors appreciating Robert's integrity and judgment. The institute had become a model, with cities across the country requesting blueprints to create their own. "Mommy!" Emma called out. "Can we stop for ice cream on the way home?" "Of course, sweetheart." As they prepared to leave, Emma hugged each child goodbye, switching languages naturally as she wished them good night. In the parking lot, she stopped suddenly. "Mummy, remember when I walked into that meeting room?" "How could I forget?" Sarah laughed. "I was so scared," Emma admitted, "but then I remembered what you always told me, that being different isn't wrong, it's just different, and that the truth is always worth telling, even when it's hard." She looked up at her mother with those wise brown eyes. "We did the right thing, didn't we?" Sarah knelt down, pulling her daughter close. "Yes, baby, we did the right thing." As they drove home through the Austin streets, Emma chattering about her day in a mixture of languages, Sarah marveled at the journey. From a terrified single mother cleaning offices to director of an institute changing lives, from a hidden genius to a celebrated child prodigy using her gift to lift others. They'd faced their demons, exposed the truth, and built something beautiful from the ashes of their old life. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new children to help, new languages for Emma to explore. But tonight they were simply a mother and daughter, heading home for dinner and homework and bedtime stories. Emma had saved Harrison Industries from a corporate disaster, but more importantly, she'd shown the world that extraordinary gifts can bloom in the most unexpected places. All it takes is someone willing to see them, nurture them, and stand up for them when it matters most. The little girl who spoke 5 languages had found her voice, and in doing so had given voice to countless others who'd been waiting to be heard. "Can I dance with you?" asked the little girl at the father-daughter dance, to the CEO who abandoned her mum 10 years ago. He's left in shock. Just before we start, this community spans every continent. Drop your city's name if you feel comfortable sharing. The grand ballroom of the Westfield Hotel sparkled with tiny lights that reflected off the polished dance floor like stars. Fathers in suits twirled daughters in frilly dresses to the orchestra's gentle waltz. Robert Anderson stood at the edge of the charity event, scotch in hand, surveying the scene with detached interest. As CEO of Pinnacle Technologies, his presence was expected at these fundraisers, though children's causes had never been his priority. "Mr. Anderson, could I have a word?" A colleague approached, and Robert nodded, grateful for the distraction from the sentimental display before him. As they discussed quarterly projections, Robert felt a small tug on his jacket. Turning, he found himself looking down at a little girl with chestnut hair and familiar hazel eyes that stopped his breath. Her pale blue dress matched the ribbon in her hair, and she stood with a confidence that belied her small stature. "Excuse me," she said clearly, extending her hand formally. "Would you dance with me?" Robert stared, momentarily speechless. Something about her eyes, the shape, the color, struck him like a physical blow. "I'm sorry, sweetheart," he finally managed. "I think you've mistaken me for someone else. Your father must be around here somewhere." The little girl's expression didn't waver. "No mistake. You're Robert Anderson, CEO of Pinnacle Technologies." She paused, then delivered the words that would shatter his carefully constructed world. "And you're my father." The room seemed to tilt. Conversations faded to a distant hum as Robert stared at the child claiming to be his daughter. A daughter he never knew existed. "That's not possible," he whispered, though even as the words left his mouth he recognized Sarah's features in the girl's face. Sarah, whom he'd left 8 years ago. "My name is Emma Grace Anderson," she continued, undeterred. "I'm 7 years old. My birthday is March 18th. My mom is Sarah Wilson. You left when she was pregnant with me." Robert's colleague discreetly stepped away, leaving him alone with this child who spoke with such startling directness. "How did you find me?" he asked, his voice barely audible over the music. "Google," Emma replied simply. "Plus, your picture was in Mum's old box. The one she thinks I don't know about." She glanced at the dance floor. "So will you dance with me? Just one dance, that's all I came for." Robert felt dozens of eyes on them now, including those of the event photographer. Tomorrow's headline flashed in his mind. Tech CEO refuses dance with child at charity ball. "Just one dance," he agreed, setting down his glass with a shaking hand. As they stepped onto the floor, Emma placed her small hand in his. "I've been practicing," she informed him seriously. "Michael taught me." "Michael?" "Mum's friend. He takes me to father-daughter things sometimes." Robert felt an irrational surge of jealousy as Emma guided him through the basic waltz steps. She counted under her breath, concentrating with an intensity that reminded him painfully of himself. "Does your mother know you're here?" he asked suddenly. Emma's slight hesitation told him everything. "She thinks I'm at a sleepover with Madison." "Emma, you can't just—" "I had to meet you," she interrupted, "just once." As the music swelled around them, Robert caught sight of his reflection in the ballroom's mirrored wall. A successful man dancing with a little girl who had his eyes and Sarah's determined chin. A daughter he hadn't known existed until 5 minutes ago. A daughter who had sought him out. "Why now?" he asked. "After 7 years?" Emma looked up at him, suddenly vulnerable despite her composure. "Because I needed to know if you were real." Sarah Wilson paced her living room, phone pressed to her ear, fighting to keep panic from her voice. "Madison's mother swears Emma never arrived for the sleepover. She thought we had cancelled." Her free hand clutched Emma's teddy bear, the one constant in her daughter's life. "I'm driving around the neighborhood again," Michael Thompson replied, his deep voice steady despite the concern evident in it. "Did you check her search history on the iPad?" Sarah froze. "Hold on!" She rushed to Emma's room, swiping open the tablet. The browser history had been cleared, unusual for her 7-year-old. But the photo gallery revealed screenshots of an event page. Annual Children's Hospital Charity Ball at the Westfield Hotel. "Oh, God," Sarah whispered. "Michael, I know where she is." Across town, the orchestra finished its waltz. Robert guided Emma to the edge of the dance floor, his mind racing. The child, his child, looked up at him with an evaluating gaze that seemed impossible for someone so young. "You're taller than in the pictures," Emma remarked, "and you have more grey hair now." Robert's hand unconsciously touched his temple. 7 years will do that. 8, Emma corrected. "You left 8 years ago, before I was born." A waiter passed with sparkling cider, and Emma deftly snagged 2 glasses, offering one to Robert with practiced politeness that spoke of her mother's careful upbringing. "You shouldn't be here alone," Robert said, accepting the glass automatically. "Does anyone know where you are?" "I took an Uber using Mom's account," Emma explained. "The driver thought I was meeting my dad here." Her smile held a hint of mischief. Which was true. Robert felt dizzy at her resourcefulness and the recklessness of her journey. "Emma, I need to call your mother." "Not yet," she pleaded. "I have questions first. Questions I may not have answers to." Emma studied him, head tilted. "Why did you leave Mom when she told you about me?" The directness of the question hit like a physical blow. Robert glanced around, acutely aware they were in public. "That's uncomplicated, Emma. I'm smart for my age. Everyone says so." "I'm sure you are, but this isn't the place." "Did you not want me?" Her voice remained steady, but her small fingers tightened around the glass. Robert crouched to her level, surprising himself with the instinctive movement. "Emma, I didn't know about you." Confusion crossed her face. "But Mom said she told you she was pregnant and then you left." The memories flooded back, that final explosive argument in their apartment. Sarah, tearfully announcing her pregnancy amidst the wreckage of their relationship. Him walking out, believing it a desperate attempt to salvage what was already broken. I didn't believe her, he admitted, the truth tasting bitter. We were already separating, I thought. He trailed off, realizing how hollow any explanation would sound. Emma digested this. So you didn't leave because of me? You just didn't think I was real? Something like that, Robert answered, the inadequacy of his response hanging between them. Emma's expression brightened slightly. That's better than you leaving because you didn't want me. Before Robert could respond, a commotion at the entrance caught his attention. Sarah stood in the doorway, Michael beside her, both scanning the crowd frantically. Even from a distance, Robert recognized the mixture of fear and fury on his ex-wife's face. "That's Mom," Emma whispered, suddenly looking her age, a child caught in wrongdoing. "She's going to be so mad." "With good reason," Robert replied, standing and instinctively placing a protective hand on Emma's shoulder. The gesture surprised them both. Sarah spotted them, her face paling. 8 years dissolved in an instant as their eyes locked across the crowded room. "You should go to her," Robert said quietly. "This isn't how any of this should have happened." Emma looked up at him, suddenly urgent. "Will I see you again?" Before he could answer, Sarah was pushing through the crowd toward them, her expression a storm of emotions that Robert remembered all too well. "I don't know," he answered honestly, "but thank you for the dance, Emma." What were you thinking?" Sarah's voice cracked with the strain of maintaining composure in the hotel corridor. "Do you understand how dangerous that was? Taking an Uber alone, disappearing without telling anyone?" Emma stood with her head bowed, but her posture remained unbent. "I just wanted to meet him." "You could have been—" Sarah broke off, unable to voice the horrors her mind had conjured during the frantic search. She crouched, gripping Emma's shoulders. "Promise me, you will never do anything like this again." "I promise," Emma whispered, tears finally welling. "I'm sorry I scared you." Michael hung back, giving them space while keeping a watchful eye on the ballroom entrance where Robert Anderson remained, observing the family reunion from a distance. Sarah hugged Emma tightly, then stood. "Wait here with Michael. I need a word with your father." As Sarah approached, Robert straightened his tie in an unconscious gesture of armor-donning. 8 years had been kind to her, he noted. The college girlfriend who became his wife now moved with a confident grace that spoke of hard-won strength. "Sarah," he greeted, his voice carefully neutral. "How dare you?" she hissed, stopping just short of him. "How dare you dance with her, speak with her, without calling me immediately?" "She only approached me 15 minutes ago," Robert defended. "I was trying to process the fact that I apparently have a 7-year-old daughter I never knew existed." Sarah's eyes flashed dangerously. "Don't you dare pretend you didn't know. I told you I was pregnant that night. And I didn't believe you," he countered. "We were already over, Sarah. I thought it was a last-ditch effort to what? Trap the mighty Robert Anderson?" Bitter laughter escaped her. "I tried to call you for weeks afterward. Your number was changed. Your assistant blocked me. Your lawyer delivered divorce papers that made no mention of a child." Robert's certainty faltered. "I instructed them to handle everything. I was opening the Singapore office." "Always the convenient business trip." Sarah's voice dripped with old pain. "She has your eyes, Robert, and your birthmark on her shoulder. A simple DNA test would have confirmed everything." The weight of 8 years of absence pressed on him. "I didn't know," he repeated, though the excuse sounded hollow even to himself. "Well, now you do," Sarah replied. "So what happens next is your choice. You can disappear again, you're good at that, or—" He prompted when she didn't continue. Sarah looked back at Emma, who was showing Michael something on her small, beaded purse, her animated gestures a mirror of Robert's own mannerisms during business presentations. "Or you can be her father," Sarah finished quietly. "But understand this, if you choose to be in her life, it's not casual. It's not when it's convenient between board meetings. It's ballet recitals and science fairs and being there when she has nightmares." Robert felt the foundations of his carefully structured life shifting. "I need time to think." "Take all the time you need," Sarah replied with practiced indifference. "We've managed 7 years without you. We'll manage more." She turned to leave, then paused. "She researched you for months, you know. Saved her allowance to buy the ticket to this event. Practiced dancing with Michael for weeks." Her voice softened fractionally. "Whatever you decide, remember she's the one who found you, not the other way around." As Sarah walked back toward Emma and Michael, Robert called after her, "How do I contact you if I—" "Emma left something for you," Sarah replied without turning. "Check your pocket." Confused, Robert reached into his jacket pocket and found a folded paper star. Opening it carefully revealed a phone number written in careful child's handwriting, and beneath it, "This is Mom's number. Call if you want to be my dad. Emma G. Anderson, your daughter." Robert sat in his empty penthouse, the paper star unfolded before him on the glass coffee table. 3 days had passed since the charity ball. 3 days of distracted meetings and sleepless nights. His executive assistant had noticed, diplomatically rearranging his schedule to accommodate his unusual distraction. The DNA test results lay beside the star, rushed through a private lab at considerable expense. 99.9998% probability of paternity. The clinical confirmation of what Emma's hazel eyes had already told him. He had a daughter. His phone chimed with Michael Thompson's third call of the day. Robert had been avoiding his VP of operations and apparent stand-in father figure to his daughter. The thought still jolted him, his daughter, his friend, playing father to his child. Finally he answered. "Michael." "About time," came the familiar voice. "We need to talk, Rob." "About Emma?" "Yes, about Emma. And Sarah. And the fact that you've been walking around the office like a ghost for 3 days." Robert sighed. "Come over tonight. Bring whatever files need my attention." "I'll bring scotch instead," Michael replied. "Files can wait." Hours later, 2 tumblers of Macallan 25 sat between them as Michael filled the silences Robert left. "She's extraordinary, Rob. Brilliant, stubborn, observant, reads at a high school level already, plays chess like a demon," pride colored Michael's voice. "She's got your analytical mind and Sarah's compassion." Robert swirled his untouched scotch. "How long have you been in their lives?" "Since the beginning," Michael admitted. "I ran into Sarah at the hospital when Emma was born, premature but fighting, just like her mother." He leaned forward. "Sarah never asked for anything, Rob. Not money, not support. She finished nursing school with a newborn, worked double shifts. I just helped where I could." "While working for me," Robert observed, an edge in his voice. "Don't," Michael warned. "Don't make this about loyalty to you. You were gone. They needed someone." Robert conceded with a nod. "Does Emma have everything she needs?" Michael's hesitation was brief but noticeable. "Materially? Sarah provides well enough. Emotionally? She's been asking about you more this past year. Hence the mission to find you." "There's something you're not telling me." Michael set down his glass. "That's Sarah's place, not mine." A knock at the door interrupted them. Robert opened it to find Sarah, arms crossed, expression guarded. "Michael called me," she explained, stepping inside without waiting for invitation. She stopped short at the sight of the DNA results. "Was that necessary?" "For me, yes," Robert replied. "Come in, Sarah." She remained standing, declining his gesture toward the sofa. "Emma's been asking if you'll call." "I've been processing," he said, aware of how corporate the response sounded. Well, process faster, Sarah snapped. She's 7. She thinks your silence means she did something wrong by finding you. Guilt surged through him. That's not what you intended, Sarah finished. Intentions don't matter much to children, Robert. Actions do. Michael stood, gathering his coat. I should go. Stay, Sarah and Robert said simultaneously, then exchanged surprised glances. Robert needs to hear everything, Sarah continued, and I'd rather say it once. The gravity in her tone chilled him. What is it? What's wrong with Emma? Sarah sank onto the edge of the sofa. Emma has a rare blood disorder, diamond black fan anemia. Her bone marrow doesn't produce enough red blood cells. The medical terminology hit Robert like physical blows. Is it treatable? She has monthly transfusions, takes medications daily, but her body is becoming resistant. Sarah's clinical tone couldn't hide her fear. She needs a bone marrow transplant. I'm not a match, neither is Michael. Understanding dawned with terrible clarity. That's why she sought me out now. Sarah's eyes flashed. No, Emma has no idea I'm here tonight. She found you because she's wanted to know her father her entire life, her voice caught. But yes, we need to test if you're a match. It could save her life. Robert stared at the paper star, its edges worn from his handling. When? The specialist can see you tomorrow, Michael interjected. I've already cleared your schedule. Robert looked between them, his ex-wife and his friend, united in their concern for a child he'd only just discovered. A child who needed him in ways he couldn't have imagined. I'll be there, he promised, the words feeling inadequate against the weight of 7 missed years and an uncertain future. The children's ward bustled with activity as Robert followed Sarah through corridors decorated with bright murals and twinkling lights. Every step felt surreal, this hidden parallel universe of childhood illness existing alongside his world of boardrooms and balance sheets. Emma doesn't know why you're here, Sarah reminded him, stopping outside a room with construction paper stars on the door. She thinks you're just visiting. And if I'm a match? Robert asked quietly. Sarah's expression softened marginally. Then we'll explain everything together. Inside, Emma sat cross-legged on the hospital bed, a chessboard before her, Michael seated opposite. Her face lit up when she spotted Robert, though she quickly composed herself into studied casualness. You came, she observed, moving a knight with deliberate precision. Check, Michael. Michael groaned theatrically. She's ruthless, Rob. No mercy for an old man. Robert approached cautiously, noting the IV line disappearing beneath Emma's Wonder Woman pajama sleeve. I got your message. Very professional. The star was a nice touch. Origami, Emma explained. I'm learning from YouTube. I can make cranes and frogs, too. She studied him openly. You look tired. Emma, Sarah admonished gently. It's fine, Robert assured her. I am tired. Work has been busy. Emma nodded knowingly. Michael says you run a very important company that makes computers talk to each other. That's surprisingly accurate, Robert acknowledged, with a glance at Michael, who shrugged innocently. A nurse appeared with a cheerful smile. Mr. Anderson, we're ready for you now. Emma's gaze sharpened. Ready for what? Sarah stepped forward. Robert just needs some tests, sweetie. Routine checkup. Emma's eyes narrowed suspiciously. In the pediatric oncology ward? Robert felt a surge of respect for her perception. No wonder she'd managed to track him down. I'll be back soon, he promised, following the nurse. An hour later, Robert sat in Dr. Olivia Martinez's office as she explained the bone marrow donation process. The preliminary blood work showed promising compatibility, though final results would take days. If you're a match, Doctor. Martinez explained, the actual donation procedure takes about 2 hours. We use a special needle to withdraw liquid marrow from your pelvic bone. And recovery time? Robert asked. already mentally rearranging his calendar. A week of soreness, perhaps 2 before you feel completely normal. And for Emma, if this works? Doctor, Martinez's expression softened. The transplant is difficult. Recovery takes months, but success rates are good with familial donors. She studied him. You just learned about your daughter, didn't you? Robert nodded, unable to vocalize the complex emotions churning within him. For what it's worth, the doctor offered, Sarah is one of the strongest parents I've ever worked with. Emma is extraordinary. However you proceed from here, they've built something remarkable. When Robert returned to Emma's room, he found her alone, Sarah and Michael having stepped out for coffee. Are you sick too? Emma asked bluntly as he sat beside her bed. No, he answered honestly. Then why are they testing you? Robert considered his options. Emma, what do you know about your condition? She sighed with the exasperation of one who'd explained this many times. My bone marrow is lazy. It doesn't make enough red blood cells, which carry oxygen, so I get tired a lot. Sometimes I need other people's blood. She pointed to the IV. Like today. And has your mom explained about bone marrow transplants? Emma stilled. Those are for when the medicine stops working as well. Her eyes widened. Are you getting tested to see if you can give me your bone marrow? Robert nodded, struck by her quick understanding. Does that mean the medicine is stopping working? Fear crept into her voice for the first time. It means we're exploring all options, Robert answered carefully. Your mom is very thorough. Emma considered this. If you matched, would it hurt you? A little, he admitted, but not for long. Would you do it? Even though you just met me? The question hung between them, simple yet profound. Yes, Robert said, surprised by the immediacy and certainty of his answer. Without hesitation. Emma's small hand reached for his, her grip surprisingly strong. Thank you. She paused. Does this mean you're staying? In my life, I mean. Before Robert could answer, Sarah and Michael returned. The moment fractured, Emma's question lingering unanswered, as the adults exchanged meaningful glances over her head. Later, in the hospital corridor, Dr. Martinez approached with preliminary results. We need more tests, but it's looking promising, very promising. When will we know for certain? Sarah asked, hope warring with caution in her voice. By Friday, the doctor assured them. If Mr. Anderson is a match, we can schedule the procedure for next week. As they walked to the parking lot, an uncomfortable silence stretched between them, until Robert finally spoke. I'd like to see her again, before Friday, if that's okay. Sarah studied him, searching for something in his expression. Whatever she saw made her nod slowly. She has chess club tomorrow after school. 4 o'clock at the community center on Maple Street. I'll be there, Robert promised. As he watched Sarah drive away, Michael clapped him on the shoulder. For what it's worth, I think you're doing the right thing. I'm not doing it to be right, Robert replied quietly. I'm doing it because she's my daughter. The words felt strange on his tongue, yet undeniably true. The community center hummed with the concentrated silence of children in thought. Robert stood at the back of the room, feeling conspicuously out of place in his business suit among parents in casual attire. Emma sat at a board near the front, her brow furrowed in concentration as she contemplated her next move against a boy nearly twice her size. She's the club champion for her age group, whispered a voice beside him. Robert turned to find Sarah, who'd apparently slipped in after him. Been playing since she was 4. Did you teach her? He asked. Sarah shook her head. Michael. He's played since college. The familiar twinge of jealousy returned. All these milestones, these skills, these aspects of his daughter's personality, shaped by another man while he'd been oblivious, focused on quarterly reports and market expansions. Thank you for letting me come, he said, instead of voicing these thoughts. Sarah's gaze remained on Emma. She asked if you would. That's the only reason. On the board, Emma executed a complex maneuver that left her opponent blinking in surprise. A small smile played at the corner of her mouth, an expression Robert recognized from his own mirror. "The test results came in early," Sarah said quietly. "Dr. Martinez called an hour ago." Robert's heart stuttered. "And? You're a match, a very good one." Relief and something more complicated colored her voice. "The procedure is scheduled for Monday if you're still willing." "Of course I am," he replied immediately. Sarah finally looked at him directly. "This doesn't erase the past 8 years, Robert. I know that. But," she continued, her voice softening fractionally, "it does change things. For Emma's sake, we need to establish some kind of relationship. Co-parenting, I suppose." The term felt both foreign and right. "I'd like that," Robert said carefully. "I know I have a lot to learn." Sarah's laugh held little humor. "You have no idea." Across the room, Emma executed a checkmate, her face lighting with contained triumph as she offered her hand to her opponent with practiced sportsmanship. She scanned the room and spotted Robert, her smile widening momentarily before she composed herself again. "She's trying so hard to be casual about you being here," Sarah observed. "She practiced what she'd say to you all morning." Emma approached them, chess notation book in hand. "You came," she said to Robert, echoing her greeting from the hospital. "I said I would," he replied simply. "Mom says you're a match," Emma continued, her direct gaze challenging him to prevaricate. "Yes," he confirmed, glancing at Sarah. "Your mother and I were just discussing next steps." Emma nodded seriously. "The bone marrow transplant. I've been reading about it." She held up her book. "Not in this. This is just chess. I have medical books too." "Of course you do," Robert murmured, increasingly awed by this child, his child. "Are you scared?" Emma asked unexpectedly. The question caught him off guard. "About the procedure?" "About being my dad," she clarified, her voice matter-of-fact despite the weight of her words. Sarah inhaled sharply beside him, but remained silent, allowing him to answer. "Yes," Robert admitted, crouching to Emma's level. "I am. I've missed 7 years of your life. I don't know your favorite color or book or what makes you laugh." "I'm afraid I'll disappoint you." Emma considered this with a seriousness that belied her age. "Purple, the Phantom Toll Booth, and Michael's dad jokes, even though I pretend they're not funny." She paused. "Everyone's afraid of disappointing people they care about. That's normal." Her simple wisdom left him momentarily speechless. "I have a recital next Friday," she continued pragmatically. "You'll still be recovering, but you could come in a wheelchair if you wanted. Mom says it's important to keep doing normal things during treatment." The casual invitation, her extension of normalcy to include him, felt monumental. "I'd like that very much," he managed. Emma nodded, satisfied. "Good. I play the wizard in our dance. I have a purple cape." She turned as her chess coach called the group back for awards. "I have to go get my trophy." As she walked away, Sarah let out a long breath. She's been planning that conversation for days. "She's remarkable," Robert said, watching Emma accept a small trophy with dignity beyond her years. "Yes, she is," Sarah agreed. "And now you have a chance to know her. Don't waste it, Robert." He turned to face his ex-wife fully. "Sarah, about the past, about leaving, there's something you should know." Sarah's expression closed immediately. "Not now, not here." "It's important," he insisted. "The reason I left—" "Was it because of the call?" she interrupted, her voice barely audible. Robert froze. "You knew about that." "I found out later, much later." Pain flickered across her face. "Michael told me after things got bad with Emma's condition." "I should have told you myself," Robert acknowledged. "I shouldn't have just left." "No," Sarah agreed, "you shouldn't have." She watched as Emma proudly showed her trophy to her coach. "But that's the past. Emma is what matters now. Across the room, their daughter looked back at them. These two adults awkwardly navigating a new reality because of her. She gave them a small, encouraging wave. "She's been waiting for you," Sarah said softly. "Even before she knew she needed your bone marrow, she's been waiting for you her entire life." The weight of those words settled on Robert's shoulders, not as a burden, but as a responsibility he was finally ready to accept. "I'm here now," he promised, "and I'm not going anywhere." The morning of the bone marrow procedure dawned clear and crisp. Robert stood at his penthouse window, watching the sun rise over the city skyline. In 3 hours, doctors would extract the marrow that might save his daughter's life. The thought still felt surreal. His daughter, whom he'd known for less than 2 weeks. His phone chimed with a text from Emma. "Good luck today. Don't be scared. The doctors are really nice." The simple message, sent from Sarah's phone, brought an unexpected lump to his throat. A child comforting an adult, her way of establishing connection on this momentous day. Michael arrived to drive him to the hospital. "Nervous?" he asked, as they navigated morning traffic. "About the procedure, no," Robert replied. "About everything after?" "Absolutely. One day at a time," Michael advised. "That's how Sarah's handled everything since Emma's diagnosis." Robert nodded, then asked the question that had been haunting him. "Why didn't you tell me sooner about Emma? You've known all along." Michael's hands tightened on the steering wheel. "Sarah made me promise not to. And after what happened with your father, you knew I would have come back if I'd known the truth." "Would you?" Michael challenged. "You were building an empire, Rob. You left Sarah when she needed you most. I wasn't convinced a child would change that." The hospital loomed ahead, ending their conversation as they pulled into the parking structure. Inside, Emma waited in a wheelchair, her small frame dwarfed by hospital equipment. Her face lit up when she spotted Robert, though fatigue shadowed her eyes. "You came," she said, her customary greeting that now carried layers of meaning between them. "Of course," Robert replied, kneeling beside her wheelchair. "I promised." Dr. Martinez approached with warm efficiency. "Good morning, Mr. Anderson. We've prepared everything. Emma wanted to see you before you both go in for your procedures." "Can I ask something first?" Emma looked between Robert and Sarah, who stood protectively nearby. "Anything," Sarah assured her. "After this is over, and if it works." Emma hesitated. "Will we be a real family, like with Robert visiting on weekends and stuff?" The question hung in the air, weighted with hope and complexity. Robert met Sarah's gaze over Emma's head, an unspoken conversation passing between them. The past could not be erased, but perhaps the future could be rewritten. "Yes," Robert answered firmly. "We'll figure it out together. All of us." Sarah's small nod confirmed the promise. Michael stepped back slightly, his role in this new configuration uncertain but his support unwavering. Emma smiled, satisfied. "Good. Because I already told Madison you're coming to Career Day next month." Robert laughed, surprised. "Did you now?" "Tech CEOs are very impressive," Emma informed him solemnly. "Much cooler than Madison's dad who sells insurance." The tension broke as they all chuckled, momentarily united by this extraordinary child's matter-of-fact planning for a future she was fighting to have. As orderlies arrived to take them to separate procedure rooms, Emma reached for Robert's hand. "See you on the other side," she said, echoing a phrase she'd clearly picked up from medical dramas. "Count on it," Robert promised, squeezing her small fingers gently before letting go. Hours later, groggy from anesthesia and sore from the extraction site, Robert woke to find Sarah sitting beside his recovery bed. "It went perfectly," she said before he could ask. "They're transplanting the marrow now. Emma's doing well." Relief washed over him. "Thank you for letting me do this, for letting me be part of her life." Sarah's expression softened. "She chose you, Robert. I'm just following her lead." She paused. "Besides," Some things are meant to be, even if they take detours along the way. 6 weeks after the transplant, Emma sat cross-legged on her hospital bed, a chessboard between her and Robert. Outside, autumn painted Central Park in fiery colors, visible from her room's window. Her hair was growing back in wispy patches, a side effect of the anti-rejection medications. "Check," she announced, moving her bishop with careful precision. Robert studied the board, impressed. "You've been practicing." "Michael brings his laptop when you're at board meetings. We play online." She adjusted her knitted purple beanie, a gift from Robert's executive assistant who had taken to sending weekly care packages. The mention of Michael still triggered a complicated mix of gratitude and jealousy in Robert. The man had been there for all the moments he'd missed, first steps, first words, first day of school. "Your move," Emma prompted, interrupting his thoughts. Robert moved his knight, deliberately setting up a teaching moment. Emma spotted it immediately, capturing his queen with a triumphant grin. "You did that on purpose," she accused. "Prove it," he challenged, enjoying her indignation. The door opened as Sarah entered with Dr. Martinez. The doctor's expression revealed nothing as she reviewed Emma's latest test results. "Well?" Sarah prompted, tension evident in her voice. Dr. Martinez smiled. "The numbers are excellent. The transplant is taking beautifully. Another 2 weeks, and Emma can continue recovery at home with weekly outpatient visits." Emma let out a small whoop, then composed herself with practiced dignity. "Does this mean I can go back to school after Christmas break?" "If things continue this way, yes," the doctor confirmed. After she left, Emma turned to Robert. "That means you won't have to visit me in the hospital anymore." "No," he agreed. "I'll have to visit you at home instead." "And take me to the park," Emma added. "And the museum. And ice skating when I'm stronger." Robert exchanged glances with Sarah, who nodded slightly. "We can arrange that," he promised. Later, as Emma napped, Robert and Sarah walked to the hospital cafeteria in companionable silence, a truce established through their shared focus on Emma's recovery. "We need to talk about the future," Sarah said as they sat with coffee neither really wanted. "Practical arrangements." Robert nodded. "I've been thinking about that. I'd like regular visitation. Weekends, perhaps? Some holidays?" "That would work," Sarah agreed. "Emma needs stability, but she also needs you in her life." She hesitated. "There's something else. The medical bills. The insurance covers most, but not all." "I want to help," Robert said immediately. "Please, let me." Sarah studied him. "This isn't about money, Robert. It's about commitment. If you're in her life now, you're in it completely. No disappearing when things get difficult." "I'm not that person anymore," he promised. "Aren't you?" Sarah challenged gently. "The call that made you leave 8 years ago. Would you make a different choice today?" The question struck at the heart of their unresolved past. Robert's father's desperate call from the hospital, his mother's condition deteriorating rapidly. The impossible choice between his disintegrating marriage and his dying mother. The decision to leave without proper explanation, too overwhelmed to navigate both crises. "Yes," he answered honestly, "I would have found a way to handle both." Sarah nodded, accepting his answer without further comment. "Emma wants to spend Christmas at home. I'd like you to join us for dinner that day, if you're willing." The invitation, carefully framed and limited, represented a step forward Robert hadn't dared hope for so soon. "I'd be honored," he replied simply. As they returned to Emma's room, they found Michael reading to her from the phantom toll booth. He looked up, closing the book as they entered. "Just getting to the good part," he explained. "Don't stop," Emma protested. "Robert hasn't heard this story yet." The three adults exchanged glances, navigating their evolving roles in this child's life. Then Michael reopened the book, continuing the story as Emma snuggled deeper into her pillows, content to have her expanding family together in one room. Snow fell gently outside the window of Sarah's brownstone as Robert rang the doorbell, gifts balanced carefully in his arms. The house was modest but warm, decorated with twinkling lights and handmade ornaments that spoke of years of Christmases he'd missed. Emma answered the door, her face alight with excitement. 2 months post-transplant, her energy was returning, though she remained thin and tired easily. Her hair had grown into a pixie cut that framed her face. "You're here!" she exclaimed. "Mum said we couldn't open presents until you arrived. Sorry I'm late," Robert apologized, stepping inside. "Last-minute board call." Sarah appeared from the kitchen, wiping her hands on a festive apron. "Merry Christmas, Robert. Dinner's almost ready." "Do." The formality between them had softened over the weeks of Emma's recovery, their shared concern creating a bridge across the chasm of their past. "Michael's in the living room," Emma informed him, taking one of the packages. "He's been helping me with my science fair project." Robert followed her through to a cozy room where a Christmas tree sparkled with colored lights. Michael stood to greet him, offering a beer. "Glad you could make it," he said with genuine warmth. The relationship between the two men had evolved into a cautious friendship. Michael had stepped back slightly as Robert took on more fatherly duties, finding a new balance that prioritized Emma's needs above any adult awkwardness. "Present time," Emma announced, settling cross-legged by the tree, with the enthusiasm of any 7-year-old at Christmas, despite her medical challenges. They watched as she unwrapped Robert's gift, a telescope with accompanying star charts. Her eyes widened. "Is this professional grade?" "Semi-professional," Robert clarified. "We can set it up on your roof when the weather clears." "Michael, look!" Emma exclaimed, showing him the telescope's features. As the two examined it together, Sarah touched Robert's arm lightly. "Perfect gift. She's been obsessed with astronomy since reading about female astronauts." "I had help," Robert admitted. "My assistant researched age-appropriate models." Sarah smiled. "You're learning." Dinner was a surprisingly comfortable affair, the adults maintaining conversation around Emma's excited chatter about returning to school in January. "Only half-days at first," Sarah reminded her. "Doctor's orders." "But I'll make it to the science fair," Emma insisted. "My project on bone marrow transplants is going to win first place." Robert raised his eyebrows. "Using your own experience as research?" "Of course," Emma replied matter-of-factly. "Primary sources are the most reliable." After dinner, while Emma showed Michael her new telescope by the window, Sarah handed Robert a small package. "From Emma and me," she explained. Inside was a framed photograph of Emma as a newborn, tiny in her NICU incubator. The second item was a USB drive. "What's this?" he asked. "Everything you missed," Sarah said quietly. "First steps, first words, birthdays. I kept digital albums. Emma thought you should have them." Robert stared at the gifts, emotion tightening his throat. "Sarah, I don't know what to say." "You don't have to say anything," she replied. "Just be here now. That's all that matters." Later, as Robert prepared to leave, Emma hugged him fiercely. "Best Christmas ever," she declared. "We're just getting started," he promised, realizing as he said it that he meant every word. On the doorstep, Sarah paused before closing the door. "Happy New Year, Robert. See you at Emma's doctor appointment on Thursday." "Wouldn't miss it," he assured her, watching as snowflakes gathered on her hair. For a moment he glimpsed the young woman he'd fallen in love with years ago, resilient, determined, kind, despite life's hardships. But the moment passed, and Sarah smiled politely before closing the door. Some bridges, Robert reflected as he walked to his car, took longer to rebuild than others. But for Emma's sake, and perhaps for their own, it was worth the effort. Spring arrived with a burst of color in Central Park. Emma raced ahead on the path, her energy fully restored after 6 months of recovery. Behind her, Robert and Sarah walked side by side, watching their daughter with shared pride. "Dr. Martinez says her latest tests are perfect," Sarah reported. "Better than they dared hope." "That's wonderful," Robert replied, his relief palpable. The fear of rejection or complications had shadowed them through the winter months, but Emma had proven as resilient in recovery as she was determined in chess. "She's invited half her class to her birthday party next month," Sarah continued, "including Madison, who's apparently forgiven her for the sleepover deception." Robert smiled. 8 years old. Hard to believe. "Try living through all 8, Sarah said, but her tone held no bitterness now. They'd established a routine over the months. Robert took Emma every other weekend and Wednesday evenings. He'd purchased an apartment 10 minutes from Sarah's home, converting the second bedroom into a space that reflected Emma's evolving interests: astronomy, chess, and most recently, computer programming. "I've been meaning to ask," Robert ventured. "About Michael." Sarah glanced at him. "What about him?" "What?" "I noticed he hasn't been around as much lately." A complicated expression crossed Sarah's face. Michael needed some space to figure out his role in all this. "I never meant to push him out," Robert said carefully. "He's been important to Emma, to both of you." "It's complicated," Sarah admitted. "For 8 years it was the 3 of us. Now it's different." Ahead, Emma had stopped to examine a butterfly perched on a flowering bush. The spring sunlight caught her hair, now grown into a bob that curled slightly at her chin. "I owe him a debt I can never repay," Robert said quietly, "for being there when I wasn't." Sarah touched his arm briefly. "He knows that." She hesitated. "There's something you should know about Michael and me." Before she could continue, Emma called out, waving them forward excitedly, "Dad! Mom! Come see this chrysalis!" The word Dad still sent a thrill of wonder through Robert each time Emma used it. The transition had happened naturally over the months of his involvement, moving from Robert to Dad without ceremony or discussion. They joined Emma by the bush, admiring the delicate chrysalis hanging from a branch. "It's a monarch," Emma informed them authoritatively. "We learned about metamorphosis in science class. Inside, it's completely breaking down and rebuilding itself into something new." Sarah and Robert exchanged glances over their daughter's head, the metaphor not lost on either of them. "Change can be beautiful," Sarah observed. "But it takes time," Robert added. Emma looked between them. "Are you guys talking about butterflies or something else?" "Both, maybe," Sarah replied with a small smile. Later, after ice cream and a visit to the Natural History Museum, Robert walked them back to Sarah's brownstone. Emma raced inside to call Madison about their butterfly sighting, leaving the adults momentarily alone on the stoop. "What were you going to tell me about you and Michael?" Robert asked. Sarah sighed. "Michael asked me to marry him last year before Emma found you." The revelation shouldn't have surprised Robert, yet it did. "And you said?" "I said I needed time," Sarah replied. "Then everything changed when Emma found you." She met his gaze directly. "He's a good man, Robert. He loves Emma like his own." "I know," Robert acknowledged. "Are you going to accept?" Sarah looked toward the door, where their daughter had disappeared. "I don't know yet. Everything's different now. We're all finding our way in this new reality." Robert nodded, understanding the complexity of their intertwined lives. "Whatever happens, Emma comes first. We agree on that." "Always," Sarah confirmed. She hesitated, then added, "Thank you, Robert, for becoming the father she always needed." As he walked away, Robert reflected on the strange journey that had brought him here. From isolated CEO to co-parent, from stranger to father. The chrysalis Emma had shown them seemed an apt symbol for them all, breaking down old structures to build something new and perhaps more beautiful. The ballroom of the Westfield Hotel sparkled once again with tiny lights, almost exactly 1 year after Emma had first approached Robert on this same dance floor. Now they entered together, Emma's hand tucked confidently in his as they made their way through the Children's Hospital annual charity ball. "There's Dr. Martinez," Emma pointed out, waving to her oncologist who was speaking with hospital administrators. At 8 years old, Emma carried herself with the poise of someone much older, her purple dress, her favorite color still, chosen specifically for this symbolic evening. The past year had transformed her from patient to advocate. She'd raised over $5,000 for the oncology ward through her school's charity drive, inspired by her own experience. "Mr. Anderson," called the event coordinator, "we're so pleased you increased Pinnacle's donation this year. The new children's wing will make such a difference." "It was the least I could do," Robert replied, meaning it. The past year had shifted his priorities dramatically. He'd restructured his work schedule, delegated more responsibility to his executive team, and focused Pinnacle's charitable foundation on pediatric medical research. As they circulated through the crowd, Robert noticed Michael entering with Sarah. Though initially awkward, Michael's presence at family events had gradually normalized as they all adjusted to their new dynamics. He'd accepted a position running Pinnacle's charitable foundation, bridging his roles in both Robert's and Emma's lives. The orchestra began playing a waltz, the same one that had been playing when Emma first approached Robert with her life-changing question. "May I have this dance?" Emma asked formally, extending her hand just as she had a year ago. "I would be honored," Robert replied, leading her to the dance floor. Emma no longer needed to count steps under her breath. They moved with practiced ease, having taken father-daughter dance lessons together for months in preparation for this night. "Remember when I surprised you here last year?" Emma asked, looking up at him. "How could I forget? You turned my whole life upside down." "For the better, right?" she prompted with a grin. "Infinitely better," he assured her. Across the room, Sarah watched them with Michael beside her. Robert caught her eye, and she smiled, a genuine smile that acknowledged how far they'd all come. Later, as Emma chatted with Dr. Martinez about her latest fundraising ideas, Sarah joined Robert by the refreshment table. "She's remarkably poised," Sarah observed. "Hard to believe this is the same girl who snuck out to find her father a year ago." "She gets that from you," Robert replied. "The determination, the courage." Sarah accepted the compliment with a nod. "We made quite a remarkable person between us, didn't we?" "We did," Robert agreed. Sarah about Michael's proposal. "I turned him down," she said quietly. "Last month." Robert's surprise must have shown on his face. "Not because of you," Sarah clarified quickly, "because I realized I've been defining myself as Emma's mother for so long that I've lost track of who Sarah is." And she glanced toward Michael, who was now laughing with Emma. "He understood. We're still friends." "And you're okay?" Robert asked. Sarah smiled. "I'm going back to school. Nurse practitioner program. Something I've wanted to do since Emma's diagnosis." "That's wonderful," Robert said sincerely. "You'll be excellent." "Emma's illness changed us all," Sarah observed, "made us reevaluate what matters." Robert nodded, watching their daughter demonstrate a dance move to Michael. "I never thanked you properly for letting me be part of her life after everything." "You're her father," Sarah said simply. "That never changed, even when you were absent." The orchestra shifted to a new song, and Emma bounded back to them. "Dad, they're playing the father-daughter special dance. Come on." As Robert allowed himself to be pulled back to the dance floor, he caught sight of their reflection in the mirrored wall, so different from a year ago. Now, instead of shock and disbelief, his face showed something he hadn't expected to find again: contentment. "Dad," Emma said as they danced, "I have a question." "Another life-altering one?" he teased. Maybe, she replied with surprising seriousness. Do you think you and Mom will ever get back together, like as a couple? Mum, the question caught him off guard. What makes you ask that? Emma shrugged with attempted casualness. Madison's parents got divorced and then remarried each other. She says it happens sometimes. Robert considered his answer carefully. Your mom and I care about each other because we both love you. But sometimes people are better as friends and co-parents than as a couple. Emma nodded thoughtfully. That makes sense. I just thought I'd ask. As the dance ended, Robert marveled at his daughter's continuing ability to surprise him with her perceptiveness and courage to ask difficult questions directly. Some things, it seemed, never changed. 2 years after Emma's bone marrow transplant, Robert stood in the backyard of Sarah's brownstone, helping Michael set up tables for Emma's 10th birthday party. The summer afternoon was perfect, clear skies, gentle breeze, and the excited chatter of children exploring the elaborate astronomy-themed decorations. Emma said you're taking her to space camp next month, Michael commented as they unfolded chairs. She's been counting down the days, Robert confirmed. Apparently, I'm in for a week of freeze-dried ice cream and zero-gravity simulations. Michael laughed. Better you than me. I did my time at science camp last summer. Their relationship had evolved into a genuine friendship, the initial awkwardness giving way to mutual respect and shared commitment to Emma's happiness. Inside the house, Emma directed operations with characteristic precision, instructing her friends where to place gifts and which activities came first. At 10, she retained the directness that had first led her to approach Robert, now channeled into leadership roles at school and her continuing advocacy for pediatric cancer patients. Sarah emerged from the kitchen carrying a spectacular cake designed like the solar system, her nursing scrubs exchanged for a summer dress. The nurse practitioner program had been demanding but fulfilling, and she'd recently accepted a position at the same hospital where Emma had been treated. The guest of honor requests your presence for cake, she informed Robert and Michael. Something about the astronomical significance of this exact moment. They gathered around as Emma explained the perfect alignment of Jupiter and Saturn, visible that night, the reason she'd insisted on an evening party despite Sarah's concerns about sugar-hyped children up past bedtime. Make a wish, stargazer, Robert encouraged, as Emma prepared to blow out her candles. I don't need to, she replied with a smile that illuminated her entire face. I already got what I wished for. Later, after the party wound down and the last guests departed, the four of them, Robert, Sarah, Michael and Emma, sat on the back porch, watching as stars appeared in the darkening sky. Which one is Jupiter again? Michael asked, squinting upward. Emma pointed with exaggerated patience. The bright one to the left of the moon, Saturn's fainter just beside it. Robert watched his daughter's animated explanation of celestial mechanics, marveling at how her fight for health had transformed into a passion for understanding the universe. The frightened child in the hospital bed seemed distant now, replaced by this vibrant, curious person on the cusp of adolescence. I have something for you, he said, when Emma paused for breath. An early birthday present. He handed her a small envelope. Inside was a letter confirming a donation to the Children's Hospital in Emma's name, funding for a new pediatric research initiative focused on rare blood disorders. They're calling it the Emma Anderson Fellowship, he explained, supporting young researchers working on treatments like the one that helped you. Emma's eyes widened. Really? Like scientists will be doing research because of me? Because of you, Robert confirmed. Your courage inspired a lot of people, Emma, including me. She launched herself into his arms with the spontaneous affection that still caught him by surprise sometimes. Thank you, Dad. Sarah's eyes met Robert's over their daughter's head. sharing a moment of quiet acknowledgement of how far they'd all come. As Emma raced inside to show Michael her latest telescope modifications, Sarah moved to sit beside Robert. "You know what today is, besides her birthday?" she asked. Robert nodded. 3 years since she found me at the charity ball. "Best thing that ever happened to all of us," Sarah said softly, though I wouldn't have believed it at the time. "Life has a way of surprising us," Robert agreed. They sat in companionable silence, watching the stars brighten against the deepening blue. The past 3 years had brought challenges, adjustments, and inevitable missteps as they learned to co-parent. But through it all, Emma had thrived, physically, emotionally, academically, surrounded by 3 adults who put her welfare above their own complicated histories. "She asked me yesterday if we'd ever tell her the full story," Sarah commented, "about why you left, about everything that happened before she was born." "What did you tell her?" "That when she's older, we'll explain everything together." Sarah glanced at him. "She deserves the whole truth eventually." Robert nodded. "When she's ready." He paused. "Do you ever wonder how different things might have been if I'd stayed? If I'd known about her from the beginning?" Sarah considered this. "Sometimes. But then we wouldn't be who we are now. And I think who we are now is exactly who Emma needs us to be." Inside, Emma's laughter rang out as she showed Michael something on her computer, probably the space camp itinerary she'd been meticulously planning. "You know what she told me last week?" Robert said. "That she's glad things happened the way they did. That if I'd been around all along, she might never have needed the bone marrow transplant that fixed her blood forever." Sarah smiled, though her eyes glistened slightly. "Leave it to Emma to find the silver lining in everything." As the first stars fully emerged, Emma burst back onto the porch, telescope in hand. "Jupiter's visible! Come see!" They gathered around as she adjusted the focus, each taking turns to peer through the lens at the distant planet. Emma's enthusiasm was contagious, her joy complete in the presence of her unconventional but devoted family. Some journeys, Robert reflected as he watched his daughter name the visible stars, began with a simple question and led to destinations never imagined. 3 years ago, a brave little girl had asked him to dance. In doing so, she'd led him to the most meaningful role of his life, being her father. "Make a wish, Dad," Emma urged as a shooting star streaked across the sky. Robert smiled, his hand finding Sarah's in the darkness as Emma leaned against his shoulder. "I don't need to," he echoed his daughter's earlier words. "I already have everything I could wish for."